Okay, test time for the Orion, however you want to say it, DC to DC chargers, the original 30 amp and the new XS 50 amp. So I put them both on separate batteries running via the Invicta battery, which I'll use to charge up. And just, I'll plug in the 30 amp unit. So just bear with me there. Plug that in. Okay, so you'll see that come on in a second. It takes a little bit longer than, there we go, bulk charge. So we've got input, output. Now you can't actually see any amps here, and this is the problem with the old units. So, but what you can see is you can see we've got 28.1 amp and 365 watt going into the battery. So that's the net number. So what I might do is turn this inverter off. Okay, so I've taken the inverter off, so that'll take that standby load from the inverter off. Hasn't really changed a lot. So we're at 28.6 amps going into the battery. Okay. And that will heat up. We know they get very hot. So it'll be interesting to see the difference between the temperature of this unit and the output and the efficiencies. So what we'll do now is we'll go back to the Orion 50 amp, which you get a lot better comms for. Okay, just waiting for that to load up. Now what we'll do is we'll unplug the 30. Let's go up here and we'll go to settings, device list. We'll bring up the Orion here. And there you go, guys. So we're getting an output of 50 amps from one of those batteries, whichever one I've got it plugged into. And we're getting input into the Invicta battery at 48.9 amps or 640 watts. So straight away, you can tell how good that is, eh? Perfect. You couldn't ask for more than that. Now what it'll do is the output voltage will drop slightly as the input voltage does. So you're never going to get a true 50 amps out of it unless you've got this sitting at 14 volt. But the great thing is here you can see it comes up as an alternator and we're charging at 47.8. I'm really impressed by that. Okay, this has now come back up so we can see what's going on. So output and input voltages and amperages, and you can see we're pretty much spot on to 50 amp because that's the net figure going into the battery, where these are the gross figures. Wow, there you go, 50 on 50. Now that's super impressive, guys, I must say. And you'll see the cell voltages are now coming back up on the Invicta. Wow. I'm super impressed by that. We're getting 50 amps out of this. Couldn't ask for more than that. So we'll do some heat tests on it and see how it goes. And remember, this is a short run, okay? So also I've got the F150 there. I want to plug that in and see what it does. I also want to plug in a smaller extension lead in terms of diameter, which I've got. And I think that's about 8 or 10 mil squared. So we'll plug that in and see what differences that makes as well. So if you come back up here, so we're showing 47.2, but that's because we're running DC items as well. So we're not getting it all where this is the true figure here. So 49.3 amps going into the battery. You really couldn't ask for more than that. The great thing with this is you can dial this up and down as well. So we can look at our input current and we can turn that down to say 30 amps. and then we're going to go 30 on 30, and you'll see the input voltage come up then, because we're not pulling as many amps out of it. So there you can get your true 30 amps out of this charger, where with the information on the old Orion, it's a bit hit and miss. You don't really know if you're getting a true 30 amps or not. And the integration with the VRM portal is just fantastic. I got to admit, Victron have done a great job with this. The biggest issue people are going to have is cable sizing. You've got to have large diameter cables. As I said, this is 16 mil squared, and that's the minimum that you would run. And I've disabled the voltage lockout and the engine shutdown detection. I've disabled all of that because I don't need that for these testing purposes. So bring that back up to 50. So input's now at 50, and our output, let's change that down to 40. And then come back out of that. And there you go. So what it'll do now is the input current will come up to where it needs to, and the output current will hold at 40 amps. Okay. You've got all sorts of settings and bits and pieces in here. VE Smart Networking, you can go your battery settings, set your defaults for lithium or whatever you want to do. Now I just wanted to show you, if I plug in the Orion 30 amp now, if I can find it, there we go. So I've plugged that back in. Now you watch this ramp up on the DC loads. There we go, 886, 889 watt. And you'll see we're now charging at 69 amps because that's come up. But if I bring the output of this one up to 50, so in and out 50, you can see the voltage has come down a little bit now. So the current on the output is now down to 47.8, which I'm still very happy with that. And the input from the battery is 50 amp. And you'll see here we're at 74.4 amps going into the battery, 967 watt. So if you take the net figure of the 47.6 from the Orion 50, the balance of the 74.2 is coming from this. So no real temperature issues yet. They feel fine. So we'll let that run, and I thought that was really interesting. So what I'll do now is I'll let these run for a little while. We'll let them heat up, and we'll see what sort of temperatures we get out of these. Then I'll plug the ute in, which I've already ran the cable for, and the ute's just sitting outside there, and then we'll see what we get out of that. And I've also got this smaller, I think it's 8 mil squared cable, and we'll see whether having less diameter cable has a massive effect on the charging. Holding nicely at 47.4. Now you're going to get a few losses. I think these are rated at 97 or 98% efficient, so you're not going to get 100% out of it. But I really love the integration with the Victron Connect app and the Servo GX. So we go back to the other one. So this is the 30 amp charger. And you can see, all you can see is input and output voltage. It doesn't really tell you too much. It just says you're in bulk mode, but you can't really see what your amps are unless you go to a screen there, or we go to the shunt. Let's go that way. So we go to the smart shunt. Okay, so you can see we've got 72.57 amps going into the battery. And if I disconnect the 50 amper, we're down to 29.66 amps. So that doesn't surprise me, because these 30 amp chargers are actually rated slightly higher than 30 amps. I'd have to pull the specs, but yeah, I think they go a little bit higher than that. And again, it's all based around temperature too, guys. So as these things get hotter, they will derate. Plug this one back in. Okay. I can disable that the other way through the app or on the screen even. It's easy just to pull the plug. So straight up to 72 amps. I tell you what, if I was getting 72 amps going into a 200 amp battery driving down the road, you got to admit, you got to be pretty happy with that. What's that, 2.5 hours, you're fully charged, or 3 hours, whatever it is. Okay, so I've just unplugged the 50 amp DC to DC, and I've only got the 30 amp DC to DC, and I've got it running off the battery, as I said, and it's current saying, because it's a best guesstimate with these, it's not exact, is 26.77 amps. So what I'll do is I'll unplug that. And now I've got my 16mm lead over there plugged into the ute. Okay, we'll plug that in and we'll see what we get. Okay, there it comes up now. So we're getting 27 amps from the ute. Okay, so we can all see that. So no real issue with the ute running the DC to DC at 30 amps or thereabouts. Okay, it's round numbers. We're just going to run with what we've got. So I'll just swap things around, and then what I'll do is I'll put the 50 amp DC to DC and I'll set it at 30 amps and we'll see how it copes. 16mm squared cable from the ute coming across, plugging into the Orion XS 50 amp, and I've set, just go here, you can have a look, I've set the input current to 50 and the output current to 30. You see the biggest problem we've got is voltage drop. Have a look at that. I'm down at 11.5 volts and it's needing 35 amp to convert to go to 30 amp, but it's charging at 30 amp. Now that's not the battery on the ute down to 11.5 volts, that's the voltage loss coming through the cable to get to that figure. Now what we did is if we max these both at 30, I doubt you're going to see 30 on the other side here. Let's have a look. There you go, 26.2. So that's the issue you face. And let's ramp it up to 50. We'll go 50 here, and we go 50 here. Will it be able to do it? Okay, it's coming up, so it's going to pull 50 amps. Okay, so look at the voltage now, down to 11 volts. And we're getting 41 amps on the other side. So you can see the limiting factor is I've got 11 to 12 meters of 16mm squared cable, and the voltage loss is too much. Now what I want to do is swap out the 16mm squared cable while we're sitting in this format here to a smaller cable and see what it does. Okay, so I've now swapped out to this 8mm squared cable, and you have a look at the voltage, 9.8 volts at 50 amps. So it's still capable of pulling the 50 amps, but on the output side we're down to 36 amps. So guys, that shows you how critical cable size is. Okay, it was never my intent to run this 50 amp charger off my ute. Okay, I'm only doing it as an example to show you I don't like the cable voltage and how it's dropped down so much. I guarantee if I put that back on the 30 amp with this cable, it'll handle it, but I reckon it'll only handle it for a while, and then the DC to DC will cut out because this cable will heat up. Okay, so there you go guys, have a look at that. So what I might do is I'll swap over the cables and I'll put this on the 30 amp controller. We'll go out of this, we'll go back to the, where is it? The 30 amp. Just bear with me, I'll unplug this cable and plug it into this one. Okay, so that's plugged in. It should come on. Okay, again, look at the input voltage. It's doing it, but what's it doing it at? Let's just have a look at the shunt. It's saying 27 amps. Now that will do that for a while until this cable heats up, and then it won't do it. I can already feel that getting warm. So cable size is crucial. Again, to prove it guys, unplug that one, plug it back into the 50 amp charger. Okay, go out of here, back into that one. Get out of it is 36.6 amps. So take off this small cable, plug in the large cable, the 16mm squared cable, go back to the ute, take that one out. Are you with me? Sorry about the bit, eh? 16mm plugged in. Come back across here. Voltage comes up. Still not to an acceptable level, mind you. Input current 50 amps, output current a bit over 40 amps. So that's the difference in the cable size. I would need 25mm squared cable off that ute to run this, but you can only put 21.2 in the 50 amp charger. So there's a limiting factor there, and cable length will come into play. So now I've introduced the 5 meter cable, and let's see what happens. We're going to see voltage drop, and we're going to see the amps drop. Here we go, straight away. 11.3 volts and 41 amps on the output. Okay, and as this cable now heats up because the size is not adequate, the output current will continue to fall. So it'll take a while, but definitely that's what happens. So, and if I introduced a longer lead, the results would be even worse. Okay, so I just want to make that clear that that's what happens. So straight away you can see we're 40.9 now at 11.2 volts. Disconnect the inadequate cable, plug in the 16mm squared cable, and it's a short run, so I expect it to work. Okay, there you go. Voltage comes straight back up, 12.8 on the input, and the output amperage, look at that, 46.5 amps. And if we had a bit more voltage in this battery, obviously we would have more current. It would be higher. The amp rating would simply just be higher. Okay, so I've been running the charging for over an hour now, and I just thought I'd check the temperatures again just to see how far we've got. Let's have a look. So you can see that 62 degrees, 62.5 on the 30 amp unit, and 46 degrees on the 50 amp unit. So that, no problem, I can keep my hand on that indefinite, not a problem at all. Oh shit, no, that's too hot. You cannot put your hand on that unit. So, as everybody knows, they heat up. Wow, that's hot. and it would also derate. So just having a look, yes, we've come down now to 44 point, let's call it 44 amps on the 50 amp unit. That'll have a lot to do with the heat and the derating, although it's not that hot, and also the voltage drop on these batteries, okay, is going to affect that output. And it will be the same with the 30 amp unit. So I just want to check. So we've got a constant 44 and a half amps on the 50 amp. What have we got on the 30 amp unit? Let's just have a look at that. I'll need to unplug this one for a quick second. Okay. Now we're down to 24 amps. Okay, so we're getting 24 amps now from the 30 amp unit due to the heat. So there you go, guys. That tells you the derating. I'll just plug this back in, bear with me. There we go, that one's plugged back in now. And you'll see that come back up. Straight up, there we go, 65 amps. So if we look back at this one, yeah, 45 amps. So we're nearly getting double the output of this unit. Okay, so to sum up, which one would I buy? Which do I like best? Okay, obviously it's the new XS 50 amp unit. The main reason being is the interface. Okay, it comes up as an alternator here on the new GUI, and you can also look at in your settings, device list, you can see, excuse my camera, all your voltages, your amps in, amps out, and wattages. To me, I think that's really great. Probably not everybody needs that, but I like it. I really like seeing what's going on. With the old 30 amp unit, it would only come up as a negative DC load. The alternator, big thumbs up, I love it. Okay, so in terms of price, as I said, so we're looking at around $328 to $352 online for the 30 amp unit, $556 to $639 for the new 50 amp unit, about 228 bucks difference. Still a great unit. If you don't need all the comms and you only need 30 amps of charging, no problem with that. Obviously, if you mount it in the correct orientation, the temperature mightn't be as bad, but I've wanted to show the extremes on it today. This one, I love the comms. I just love it. I love the output. I love you can see what you're doing with it. To me, that's a clear winner, but it's 228 bucks more. I've had a look at the pricing, and Wise Energy will do this one for $510 on a pre-sale. We're sold out at the moment. So I think it's coming in 4 or 5 weeks' time. But if you want to buy one, 510 bucks delivered, and we'll do the 30 amp at $300 delivered. So if you want to support me and Wise Energy, help me put out more videos, give us a call and we'll hook you up. Not just for DC to DC, if you want MPP total charge controllers, if you want inverters, anything Victron, we can help you out. Batteries, you name it, guys, we stock it. Okay, that's the hard sales pitch. I think I've covered off everything that you need to know for these units. I think this one's still going to be around a long time. I can't see them getting rid of it. This one's the new boy on the block, and yeah, it's great. They're talking about doing 24 and 48 volt versions. Let's wait and see if that happens. Cable sizing is going to be your issue, okay? You're going to have to run 16 to 21.2 millimeter squared cable, and I don't know if you can even get 21.2 in Australia. It seems like a bit of an odd size. It'll be a BNS standard or something like that. So I'm going to leave it there. I think I've covered everything that I need to cover. This is a great product. It puts out, 45 amps continuous. Yes, it would put out a little bit more, and you saw that at the beginning of the video. This one's still derating, guys. It's still coming down because of the temperature. Wow, 60 plus degrees. Yeah, Okay, really hope you enjoyed that. Stay tuned for the next one.